Well, hey there, I'm Dr. Tom Ulrich, and I like to talk about leadership in engineering. Hey, in my last video, I talked about the mechanics of an engineer quitting and kind of all the behavioral steps. In this video, I want to revisit the topic from the perspective of the manager. So, you're an engineering manager, one of your engineers is just given their 2 weeks notice. The question then is, hey, Tom, do you got any advice for me? And as a matter of fact, I got 3 bits of advice. The first one is learn from it. The second one is to not act like money is the only thing and only issue. And the third is to recognize there really is a phenomena called withdrawal tendency. All right, so one, learn from it. Well, as I talked about in the last video, by the time someone gives their resignation, there is very little that's under your control. About the only thing you really can control is whether or not you learn from it. And a mistake leaders often make is they convince themselves that they're perfect. They convince themselves that as soon as somebody quits, it shows the defect in that employee. The reality is when an engineer quits, the manager has some piece of that. There is something the manager's doing that they could do better. And what I'd encourage you to do is to seize the moment, is to slow down, maybe for the first time as an engineering manager, kind of be honest with yourself and say, well, what can I learn from this? And let me tell you how to gather the data. Remember last time I talked about first there's intention, there's a decision to search, and then it kind of progresses to eventually quitting. But I wouldn't go to the engineer and say, why are you quitting? Because by the time it gets to that question, it's a very complicated thing. And, it's really hard to know what's driving. But what we talked about last time is usually when they make the decision, okay, I will start looking for another job. Usually there is some event, and that's what you want to ask. You want to say, hey, can I ask, why did you start looking for another job? And here's the thing. Don't be defensive. Don't argue. Accept what they say. Just take it, gather the data. Don't argue. Don't push back. Try to listen, and you're not going to get any valuable data unless you simply hear what they're saying. You don't have to agree, but certainly don't try to shut them down during that conversation. I mean, if you're going to do that, don't bother having the conversation. If you want to get something you can learn from, you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to accept it at face value, and then go kind of think about it, what you can do better. And if you have a friend at work that you trust, share the results with them, and maybe even ask them, hey, do I have a blind spot? Is this true? And clue phone, if they're all like, if they're kind of hesitant to answer and have a little bit of they may be uncomfortable saying, yeah, I see that too. And if it's somebody, when I say it's somebody you trust, the other side is if you ask somebody who works for you, they're going to not give you the bad news because they're going to be afraid of you. But find somebody you trust and really see if you can learn something about yourself that'll be helpful going forward, because part of this is on you. In general, people don't quit a job where they love working for their boss. All right. So the second thing then I would say is don't act like money is the only issue. I see this over and over again. Someone gives their notice, and then the boss comes back, and what do? Oh, we'll give you 20% raise. Well, here's the problem with that. So there's some researchers, Allen and Meyer, and they did some very careful research, very impressive research, and they developed what's called the 3-component model. And what they found is there are 3 factors in why people quit. And they're called affective, continuance, and normative. And I'll explain what those are in a second. But the punchline here is only one of those has to do with money. There are 3 things, and we tend to pretend like there's only one thing. There's not. There's 3. Okay, so what are these? So first is the affective factor. Affect is an umbrella term for like mood and emotion, and it kind of has to do with your emotional, kind of your experience. And when someone says, "How do you feel?" You kind of describe your affective state when you answer that. So people having a bad affective experience at work, those are people who hate working there. Maybe they feel disrespected, they feel too much stress, they feel like there's never enough time, they feel like their boss hates them, there's a lot of conflict. And if you've never experienced this, I mean, what this is like is you're driving to work, and the closer you get to the building, you tighter your fists are clenched on the steering wheel, and when you turn the wheel to go into the lot, you just have this sense of dread. And when it's quitting time, 1 second after quitting time, you're heading for the car, and the further you get from the building, the better you feel. And that's someone who's really having a bad experience, someone who really doesn't like their job. And anyway, so that's kind of a big deal. And the problem is we act like it's just about the money. It usually isn't. In my experience, very few people truly leave a job for the money. Now, often, they start looking because they hate their job, and then they find something and they're offering more money, and now, it's hard to say no, but don't act like it's just the money. Address all the issues. Okay, so there's affective. We talked about that. Now there's continuance. That's got to be the worst name ever, because right now, if I said, okay, let's guess, what's continuance mean? I mean, none of you are going to go, oh, well, that probably means like, how much money would this cost me? Yeah, that's pretty much what it means. It's kind of like, what's the cost associated with leaving the company? So, if you have to take a pay cut to change jobs, that's a continuance cost. And if you get a pay raise, then you don't have that. It's like, yeah, great, benefit. Or if you have to drive further or something like that, sort of what is the cost? That's a factor. The third factor is normative. Now, that's a word we use that kind of encompasses the ideas of morality, ethics, duty, social responsibility. So maybe you're working at a company that's doing a COVID-19 vaccine, and thinking about quitting, but you're like, well, it's kind of a global pandemic. I do have these unique skills. Yeah, I need to stick it out. That would be an example of a normative factor at play. By the way, you've heard me say a big part of leadership is casting a vision. You can address that last one. That ought to be part of what you're doing with your vision, is helping people understand why it's important. Tap into the duty. Tap into the sense of duty to help make life better for people living with this horrible disease. At any rate, so the mistake managers make is they act as if money's the only issue. And what happens then is the person resigns, and they throw a bunch of money, and they say, well, okay, I'll stay. And then 6 months they quit, and everybody's surprised. Well, listen, there's 3 factors, and if you only address one, you may temporarily entice them to stay, but eventually those others are going to take over. And by the way, you can learn from the NBA here. Very few people are really motivated by money. I mean, look at all those NBA players. They're all making like $20 million a year, and how many of them are happy? See, the thing is, money can create sort of a transient little bit of happiness, a little bit of satisfaction, but truth is, very few people are motivated by money. Even guys like Bill Gates, they're not really motivated by money. He's motivated by wanting to win, and he sort of counts that in terms of money. But, we're kidding ourselves when we think all I have to do is just throw money. And it's really insidious. You're getting back to that, learn from it. Someone quits, we're kind of responsible. We tell ourselves that A, it's really not me, it's just the money. And B, I don't have to do any soul searching because I gave them more money. I mean, it's really insidious. Don't act like it's only about the money. Now, the third one, I'll take it a little bit different direction. It's from some research where they said, remember I said there's the behavioral research I did in the last video, and then there's the attitudinal research that does this 3-component model. The attitudinal is what's going on here. So that's the, affective, continuance, and normative. And what these guys did is they took them both. So they took the instrument for measuring the behavioral stuff. They took the instrument for measuring the attitudinal, and they did something called structural equation modeling and put them all together to see if there's any hidden factors. And they found there is one. They found that it absolutely depends on the person. And so the math showed conclusively, yep, there is a factor associated with the individual. And what the researchers decided to call it was a withdrawal tendency. And what it boils down to this is, if you have somebody who 3 jobs ago, they changed jobs they quit after 2 years, 2 jobs ago, they quit after 2 years, 1 job ago, they quit after 2 years, this person has a withdrawal tendency. So You look at the resume, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, and then they're at your place for 2 years and they quit. While there probably is still stuff you can learn, you can still kind of probably find something there, maybe what triggered it to make that 2 years exactly now. Because it's not like 2 years plus or minus 1 second. It's 2 years plus or minus a few months, but there still would be something you can learn. But on the other hand is if you see somebody that's 2, 2, 2, 2 or 3, 3, 3, 3 or something like that, at some level, yeah, that is on the person. By the way, flipping that around next time you're interviewing or interviewing for their replacement, look at the resume. If you see 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, you might as well set your watch, set your count, put it on Microsoft Outlook. 2 years from today, they're quitting your job. So, hiring somebody with that pattern of every 2 years or every 3 years, something like that, there's really not a very good idea. By the way, probably what you're looking for is somewhere in the last couple of jobs being someplace at least 5 years, something like that, but the point is this is a real thing, withdrawal tendency. Hey, at any rate, so that's my advice. First and foremost, learn from it. Second, don't act like money's the only issue. And third, realize, there is such a thing as withdrawal tendency. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Hey, I'm Dr. Tom Ulrich. You can go to my website for more videos, tomulrichconsulting.com. On YouTube, you're watching YouTube, just type Dr. Tom Ulrich. Chances are there's a link somewhere on the side. Click there. Hey, there I am. You can watch it there. And if you don't mind, can you give me a like? Can you subscribe? Hey, if you give a comment, ask a question. It's not like I have that many viewers. I'll answer the question. And if you want to see a video, I'll make the video on the topic you're asking for, assuming I know something about it. At any rate, hey, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.